direction. A long campaign is now.
This is the car market in Mogadishu.
NATO's military success against
many Western nations.
This is on assignment.
Hello from Washington and welcome to our show. I'm Imran Siddiqui.
And I'm Alex Villarreal. We are about to get started. And first up, radicalization in the U.S. heartland. VOA's special report on Somali Americans joining Jihad.
India's first Nobel Peace Laureate. We'll tell you more.
Environmental pollutants come in many forms in our cities, like smoke and trash. But what about light pollution?
And China has not been affected by Ebola, but the disease is affecting one of the country's cities in a big way.
We are going again with VOA on assignment. Thanks for coming along. Let's get going right now. They can be recruited to fight for Islamic militant groups like Al-Shabaab and the Islamic State. Young men radicalized in their communities far from the conflicts they decide to join. For Somalis in the U.S., it's a problem that's hitting home.
VOA's Mike Eckel and Harun Maruf collaborated on a special report about young Somalis in Minnesota and how difficult it can be to counter radicalization. Here's what they said to On Assignment's Rebecca Ward.
The community that came here in the United States and in the West was already broken. Single parents, the teenagers are not adapting very well in school, so they are dropping out and they're looking for some kind of sanctuary to make a meaning of their life. And when they do not adapt to life and school very well, they are susceptible to be influenced, brainwashed by other hidden forces. So the cohesiveness and the togetherness within the community has not been strong because of the civil war in Somalia and because of the long refugee journey that led them to end up in the United States. And that's why we are seeing Al-Shabaab, the militant group in Somalia, and ISIS to exploit this and take these young men to fight and continue the war that they fled from.
Despite being in the United States and in Minneapolis in particular, which is the largest Somali community in the country, there's still a sense of alienation for many Somalis and a sense of resentment that towards law enforcement, in particular as it relates to the Shabaab period, a period of between 3 or 4 years, between 2007 and 2010, where there were quite a number of young Somali men who were recruited by this terrorist group Al-Shabaab and ended up in Somalia. The FBI in particular was hard in its investigation and its response and built a lot of resentment in the Somali community, and that's lingering to this day.
But they're obviously doing some reaching out to the Somali community to try to curtail or to put a stop to any recruitment activities in the mosque. The mosque saying that they are not a part of the recruitment, but something has happened.
Something has happened. There has been a lot of investigation by the law enforcement authorities into the community. There has been a number of prosecutions of people who were suspected of taking the young men to Somalia. Number of people, 2 or 3 people who went to Somalia actually came back and they were taken to court and now they are serving jail terms.
The Islamic State, if you can call it a coherent organization, has a very powerful message and has really utilized social media to get that message out. The idea is that they're building a caliphate, they're building an Islamic State, and it's not just a message of war and battle that they're putting forward. They're putting forward a message of we're building a new state, an Islamic utopia in some ways.
It must have been a difficult story, Harun, on a more personal level. How did you feel about going into this community and talking to them about such sensitive subjects?
For me, it was very difficult, but I have seen a number of people who I knew from my old days in Somalia who now live here. They have got young kids. They're very worried, and they want to make sure that their children do not fall into this false hobby, so they are not being brainwashed, and they are trying to give their children as much independence as possible, but they also wanted to control them.
As someone on the outside looking in, what was your perspective?
In any situation of this sort, it's difficult to come in and to build people's trust and build a relationship so that people will talk to you frankly. The VOA Somali Service has been covering this story from the very beginning and in incredible depth, possibly like no other media outlet outlet in the entire world. We were blessed with that relationship existed, and we were able to talk to imams, to mosque leaders, to police officers, to kids, to mothers, to fathers about this issue, and try to explore all the different facets, because it's not a very simple black and white. All Muslims are terrorists, all Somalis are terrorists, obviously. There are a lot of complicated cultural and religious nuances that come into play here, and it takes time and effort and patience to explore those.
VOA's Mike Eckel and Harun Maruf, co-producers of the VOAnews.com special report on radicalized Somali Americans.
All right, we are taking a break now, but still to come, one of our VOA colleagues' up close and personal account of one of the new Nobel Peace Laureates. You're watching On Assignment. One of two winners of the 2014 Nobel Peace Prize is Kailash Satyarthi of India, who has worked for decades to fight the exploitation of children. Like his co-winner Malala Yousafzai, he is also known for his advocating of children's rights to education. Well, I have VOA's Rashmi Shukla here with me now, and Rashmi has done extensive coverage of Satyarthi and his efforts throughout the years. Rashmi, when this prize was announced, many people had heard about Malala, but not as many know about the work of Satyarthi, but you've had the chance to cover him. Tell us about that.
So this was 25 to 30 years ago, back in India. I was always drawn to social causes. And here was this man who was struggling to bring to the attention of not only his own government, but government of the world, bring attention to this social scourge that existed everywhere, which was child labor. And it was a non-issue. No one talked about it. We didn't know anything about it. I mean, we saw children working in small tea stalls and in factories and in people's homes, but people generally didn't think beyond, the immediate need that we need them. They were born in poor families and in poverty, so they were born to be slaves. That was the mentality at that time. So this man was struggling to bring it to limelight. I, as a journalist, and you know how it works in our jobs, just doing our jobs, we learn so much every day. That's the benefit of being a journalist. So I decided I was going to do this story. And I dig deeper, I investigated, and I did several documentaries talking to everybody, even people remotely connected to the issue. And the result was several good documentaries that, probably I thought brought some attention to this problem.
And over the years, you've been able to develop this personal connection
Yes.
with him as well, not just the professional coverage of him. So what are some things that we might not know about him?
Well, he's a very simple man. When I say simple, he lives his life like anybody else. He still wears the cotton long tunic with pants, just open-toed sandals. He's a vegetarian. When he visits Washington, he comes to my house, always prepares the ginger tea and boils rice for me, and I make the lentils. So that's my personal connection. Yeah. As a person, he's very modest, and he lives modestly. His family is very supportive of him, and that is also, he draws strength from them as well. As an activist, we all know how he is, but I've seen him talk about his cause. I mean, when he's in a room talking about his passion, which is of course eliminating child labor, you can feel the heat. He roars. And so you can feel the energy, and he believes that he really, like a child, he believes in this impossible dream of ridding every child from slavery, and he believes that before he goes from this planet, he's going to make sure that this is completely gone from this earth. Yeah.
An incredible man, and we are
He
so
is.
grateful to you that you've had this chance to get these insights.
Well,
into
I was
him.
just fortunate.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Again,
welcome.
Rashmi Shukla, covering Kailash Satyarthi, one of the winners of the 2014 Nobel Peace Prize.
Thank you for
so
having
much.
me.
Thank you for joining us. All right, well, we are taking a break now. On the other side, lighting up the night. When is enough light? Maybe too much. You are watching On Assignment. So if you want to get a good look at the night sky, you're probably going to have to get out of the city. Artificial light from street lamps, buildings, and even cars makes it extremely difficult to see the stars.
And the lights here in Washington are so bright you can see them from space. Experts say excessive light can affect your health, and it takes energy to run those lights, lots of it.
VOA's Roseanne Skirble lights up this topic with On Assignment's Philip Alexio. Take a look.
Washington's lights are so bright you can see them from space. This excessive light disrupts sleep patterns, affects hormones, and is even linked to some cancers. It's also bad for the planet, says Jim Doherty, president of the International Dark Sky Association.
We're just putting carbon dioxide up there. If we're burning natural gas or burning coal, we're causing global warming by sending light straight up into the sky.
Roseanne Skirble, what is the International Dark Sky Association?
The International Dark Sky Association is an organization that was created 25 years ago to point out the hazards of light pollution.
Now I've never heard of light pollution until you did this story. Had you?
Well, I had heard of light pollution, but I really didn't understand the complete complexity of it all and why it's so bad and what we can do about it. Basically, more lights than we need to light up our environment at night. We're talking about artificial lights, street lights, signs, cars, all this adds up. And basically what happens is it blocks our view of the night sky. Doherty sees excess in the Capitol Hill neighborhood, where closely spaced street lamps shed light in all directions. Even so, the glare doesn't bother this couple.
Makes me feel safe, and I definitely feel like I can see all around me. I know no one's gonna hurt me or anything like that, so that is just comforting.
Now, are they concerned about the health effects and the climate effects, or are these folks at the International Dark Sky Association just wanting people to look up and see the stars at night?
It's all of that.
Okay.
It's health effects, it's effects to the environment, it affects hormones, it affects your sleep patterns, it affects the circadian rhythm, not only in you, but also in animals.
Right.
And if there's too much light at night, what about those nocturnal creatures, the prey and the predator? It upsets those relationships. So what about the bugs that are attracted to these lights? It eliminates pollinators, insects, food for birds and such.
But you have people, and you spoke to some people on the street, and they don't have a problem with the city lit up, and most people probably don't because they feel safer under the light.
The area around here is nice, it's populated, so the lighting is a good amount. It's not too bright, and it's just the right setting for a romantic mood if you want to come out for dinner.
You're not really safer with more light. And where they were walking, they had double the light they needed.
Fact is, the right amount of light is the right amount of light. And if you double it, then you do not increase the public safety benefit, but you do increase the cost, you increase the energy use, you increase the climate impacts and the health effects. So this is a classic example of overlighting.
Actually, the glare in your eye from street lamps, and if the glare is too bright, it constricts your pupils. And what happens there is you can't see real well. And there have actually been studies done to show that.
So what is being done? What are some of the ideas coming forward?
Well, the big picture is that some cities are actually taking action and putting in rules and regulations to actually dim the lights. There are signs of a different future on the broad avenues near the U.S. Capitol, where shielded sidewalk lights aid passersby.
They're also developing technologies now where when you step into a park or when you drive your car down a street, the lights come on because they have motion sensors, or they sense your cell phone. They come on when there's someone there and then they turn off.
Paris, for example, in 2013, put in an ordinance that basically requires all people, all businesses, to turn their lights off when they leave. Okay. So the city is being lit less, and with great success. If we dim the lights, we can save money and we can save energy at the same time. It's a win-win solution. I think people just aren't aware of it. There's the myth, as we discussed before, of more light is better, but more light isn't better, isn't necessarily better.
But at the same time, the people you did talk to on the street, they are happy with the light. So there has to be a change in their perception or understanding by light. Exactly. That's a tough hurdle.
Well, but that's where they're heading. I mean, before I went out on the street, I wasn't aware of the different kinds, as aware as I am now, of the different kinds of lighting and what's needed and what isn't needed. By and large, people don't think about it. I pointed out with this couple because they were like the majority of us. Mm-hmm. They think, more is better, and it's not necessarily so.
Less is more, as we've heard so many times. And light pollution, Roseanne Skirbel, who would have known? All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks so much.
China has been almost untouched by the Ebola virus on a human level, but the disease is having an impact nonetheless on trade. In Guangzhou, the city with the biggest African population in Asia, anxiety over infections has led authorities to crack down on those living and operating illegally.
Police are swarming in the city's key African trading hub of Xiaobei, looking for visa overstayers and illegal businesses. VOA's Bill Ide visited the area to see what's going on. Take a look.
This narrow underpass used to be bustling with food hawkers and others selling cheap trinkets for African traders to take home. Now police are swarming the area. Red banners are draped along the streets, loudly broadcasting the crackdown. Others give cautionary messages about the Ebola epidemic in Africa. One warns Ebola, there's no vaccine. Shop owners say business has taken a serious hit.
Of course we worry, but that's all it is a worry. There is not much one can do. We still have to make a living for my family.
African traders are also feeling the economic pinch. Some, like Lam and Ann, wonder just how much longer they can go on.
If they see you that you are black, exactly from Africa, they obviously start running away from you. Then the business is not okay right now.
And it's not just Chinese who are concerned about contracting Ebola. Other Africans admit the epidemic looms over their interactions with others.
Of course, I'm a little bit scared because I'm meeting different kinds of people. So I may not know who is who and who is well or someone who's not okay. So it's somehow so scary.
But business must go on. Across the street in a massive high-rise, traders are restocking. One seller says they are confident long-term customers will keep placing orders, albeit online from overseas.
Ebola is definitely having an impact. Many of our customers are no longer coming here to buy, but that's not the only reason.
That other reason is the crackdown on Guangzhou's thousands of visa overstayers, going after visa violators at a time when it is also trying to prevent the spread of Ebola does not help build trust, says Heidi Hogan, a scholar who studies the African community here.
If there's a time that the Chinese government would need people to trust them, it's now. Because if something happens, then they need to, contain people. They need to get those who are at risk to the hospital or to isolate them. But there's a very real danger. I think that people will rather try to deal with it on their own.
But some argue that China has no choice. Given its massive population, they say authorities must take tough measures to keep Ebola away. In the end, whether this approach helps or hinders Ebola prevention efforts remains unclear. Bill Ide, VOA News, Guangzhou.
Now, staying on the topic of China, Imran, San Francisco, have you been?
I've heard so many things about San Francisco, but unfortunately, I've never been there.
Well, it is a fantastic city.
I've heard.
I've been before. It's beautiful. And lately, it's actually been a major stop for Chinese visitors.
A recent agreement between China and the U.S. promises to draw even more Chinese tourists to America. VOA's Michael Sullivan spent a day in the city by the bay to find out more about its appeal.
Major West Coast cities are must-see destinations for Chinese tour groups, which take in sites that include San Francisco's iconic Golden Gate Bridge. Li Hong, who was here with her daughter, says it is impressive.
It's beautiful. It's my first time in the U.S. It's very pretty because currently in China, pollution is a problem. And so I feel the air here is much better. Blue skies, white clouds. In China, that would be a luxury. There are fewer people here and the buildings are not tall. My first impression feels good.
Tourism is expected to grow since the United States and China announced this month they will extend their multiple entry tourist visas for tourists from both countries from the current 1 year to a maximum of 10 years. Harry Chen of San Francisco-based Joy Holiday takes Asian tourists to see American cities and scenic sites, including national parks. He says the visa change will help the economies of both countries.
And also, I think it's the great way to get two cultures to learn from each other, to build friendship, understanding.
These three friends will see many of those sites. Ni Shi from Shenzhen says they are at the start of their visit.
We're just here for 1 day, and then we're going to Los Angeles for about 3 or 4 days. In Los Angeles, we would like to go shopping. And then we'll go to the Grand Canyon and Las Vegas. I especially want to see the scenery. And then I want to go to Las Vegas casinos and look around. Visitors to San Francisco enjoy the city's distinctive neighborhoods. This tour stops in Haight-Ashbury, the psychedelic youth haven of the 1960s, and the gay and lesbian Castro district. The Chinese visitors find the diversity exciting, says tour guide Lan Kun Widener.
And you get to see people from all over the place, and food and architecture and even lifestyle.
Across town, Linda Lee's company, All About Chinatown, offers specialized walking tours. Both Western and Chinese visitors learn the history of the Chinese on the West Coast. For visitors from Asia, some scenes are familiar, like this shop that sells traditional Chinese medicine. But others are not, including the Chinese-American innovation of the fortune cookie invented in California. It's part of San Francisco's story and America's story, which more and more visitors from China are experiencing. Mike O'Sullivan, VOA News, San Francisco.
Wow, that's actually pretty cool. I had no idea before this show that the fortune cookie was made in California, of all places.
Wow, neither did I. But you know, if I had a fortune cookie now and if I'd open it up, it would probably say something like this: your time on today's On Assignment show is nearly over.
Which would be very accurate, but also very sad. It's a sad fortune. But we will be back next week, so don't worry, and we'll have a brand new show for you guys.
But before we go, I want to mention that people can always find our show on voanews.com and visit our Facebook page too. Just look for VOA On Assignment.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Come see us again next time.